Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side, your Sleep Number setting. And now it's our lowest price of the season on our top-selling i8 smart bed. Your best savings, plus free home delivery with an adjustable base. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
Welcome to Think About It with your host, Jaden Miller.
Good day, and welcome to Think About It with Jaden Miller. I'm your host, Jaden Miller. Hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful, wonderful day. I'm back at you with another episode. Before I get started, just want to remind you to please go on and like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel, Think About It with Jaden Miller. And please like, comment, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. I tell you this every week. I'm on all of them: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Castbox, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and so many more. So please join me. Please tell your friends and family about my YouTube channel and my podcast. I really strive to bring interesting topics to you. And so it's enjoyable. I really enjoy doing it. And so please share with everyone you know. I want people to hear what I have to say, and I'd like to hear what you have to say as well. So last episode, I talked a little bit about Sidney Poitier. It was his death, and just wanted to talk a little bit about his life and how he really moved and entertained so many people. I'm going to go in a different direction today. I'm going to talk about a topic that has always bothered me, an incident rather that has always bothered me, and it is the Emmett Till case. But I'm not going to really get into the Emmett Till case per se. What I really want to do is I really want to talk about his mother. Okay. And in talking about his mother, of course, there are going to be facets of Emmett Till's case that comes up. But I really want to focus on the strength that his mother had to endure what had to be the most god-awful thing to ever have to happen to a mother. All right. So let me just tell you about Emmett Till's mother. Her name, her married name was her married name was Mamie Till. Sorry, her married name was Mamie Till. But she was born Mamie Elizabeth Carthen, and she was born on November 23rd, 1921 in Webb, Mississippi. The Delta in Mississippi and around that area. Her mother, however, a few years later decided that Mississippi was not the place to raise Mamie, and decided to move the family north to a suburb of Chicago called Argo, which I believe is now named Summit, Illinois. Okay, just a suburb in Chicago. Her mother wanted Mamie to live a different type of lifestyle. One in which she could be somewhat free from the segregation and the threat against African Americans, which seemed to happen always in Mississippi. Mamie did very well in school. She was the first to graduate at the top of her class. She was the fourth Black graduate of Argo Community High School. And she really thrived in school. And reports say that she really thrived in school because her parents divorced when she was 13. And so she put a lot of effort into her studies. Sometimes people do that just as a way to deal with, what could be seen as a very emotional event that happens in their lives. All right. Mamie Till, like very many young women, had a decision to make. And that decision was, well, okay, what do I do now after high school? Well, she met a young man named Lewis Till. And she married him in October of 1940. And about 9 months after they married, she gave birth to Emmett Till. He was born July 25th of 1941. Unfortunately, a year later, after Emmett was born, Mamie Till separated from her husband. By all accounts, he was a ladies' man. Reports say that he was unfaithful to Mamie, and so that's what caused their separation. She got a restraining order against Lewis Till. He violated it, and in court, a judge gave him an option. And that option was to either go to jail or to go to the Army. And Lewis Till decided that the Army was going to be the best place for him to go. Unfortunately, Lewis Till was executed in Italy, and that's a story for another day. But he was executed in Italy, and so Mamie Till was then left as a widow. She did marry again. In 1951, she married a gentleman named Pink Bradley. They divorced, however, a couple of years later, and then a few years later, and she dated a man named Gene Mobley, and then after Emmett Till's death, a year or so after, she married Gene Mobley and was married to him for almost 40 years, if not more. So let's go to the summer of 1955, and it is August, and Emmett Till has visitors in Chicago. His great uncle is visiting, and he has a few cousins, and they are on their way back to Mississippi. Mose Wright was his great uncle, and he had come up to visit with Mamie's mom, and so it was time for them to head back to Mississippi. Well, again, it's early August, and so school in Chicago has not started yet. It usually doesn't start till September, and so Emmett decided that he wanted to go and visit with his cousins and stay, of course, at his great uncle's house in Mississippi. Now, Mamie Till was very reluctant, to allow him to go. Reports say that she had to have a talk with him. And for anyone that is not African American or a person of color, the talk is how to act around certain people. And again, we're talking about the Jim Crow era and in the 1950s, and we're talking about Mississippi, And so there is a code of conduct for African American people, especially African American men, all right? And so Mamie Till had to give him a crash course in how to act when he's in Mississippi, Let me go a little bit further. A crash course. So Emmett is raised in Chicago, all right, where he goes to school with some white kids, and he may have some quote unquote friendships with some white kids, and so things are a little different in the North, all right, in 1955. Well, things are a whole lot different in the South in 1955. And so Mamie Till, who had been born in Mississippi and who had moved to Chicago, would still spend summers in Mississippi. And so she had a firsthand account of the come off really, really quickly if someone looked at a white person the wrong way or said the wrong thing to them. All right. And so she gave him this crash course in hatred. All right. She made sure to tell him to always say yes, ma'am, and no, sir. That when walking down the street, to step off a sidewalk if a white woman was walking toward him, or make sure to lower his head until she passed. She told him to get on his knees in deference to whites if he had to. All right. So this is this crash course in hatred, and my understanding is that Mamie Till, even though she gave him this crash course in hatred, still had this feeling that he really didn't get it. Okay. If you think about it, how do you give someone a crash course in hatred in a matter of minutes or in a matter of hours? All right. Hatred, especially one life that's lived it, is not a crash course. Okay. It's a university. All right. It takes time. It takes study. You've seen so much. You've experienced so much. And so you have learned to adjust your ways and adjust your characteristics to fit within a society where at any time you could be accused, at any time you could be jailed, at any time you could be lynched. Yes, at any time you could be killed. All right. And so Mamie Till was reluctant, all right, to send Emmett to Mississippi. However, she felt better about it. Her uncle said they would take care of him. He was going to be with his cousins. And even still, a mother's thinking as well, what could happen? I've been to Mississippi many, many times. And so, he's going to be under the protection of his, uncle and aunt and his cousins. Everything should be okay. Well, you all that are listening, if you know the story, you know what happens. For those of you that are not familiar with the Emmett Till story, I would encourage you to Google it, to do a search for it, and read it thoroughly. As I mentioned, it's a case that I've learned about much younger in life, especially being from Chicago, okay, and having parents that were born and raised in Mississippi. All right. The story resonates with me. All right. Emmett Till had just turned 14 in 1955. His birthday was in July. All right. His cousins, his uncle, they lived in Money, Mississippi. All right. And so he wanted to go and spend some time with him. I know exactly how this is. Okay. So I remember one summer I had some cousins that were visiting from Mississippi. They were in Chicago, and last minute, I decided that I wanted to go to Mississippi with them, okay, for the summer, okay, just to have a good time, and did so. But it was a last minute thing, okay? We were on a bus, and the funny thing about it, I was just about the same age as Emmett Till when I went to Mississippi. Of course, I had been there before, with my parents, with the grandmothers. And so, this incident with Emmett Till happened in 1955. So when I'm going to Mississippi, it's 1980, okay? So it's a little different time. All right. But even still, that's why I can connect so much with this. Mississippi, is a place that draws you in. You have Chicago, the big city, but then you have this rural area, that you can go and you can swim and you can play, and most people live on land, and so you can run, and it's just such a different environment than Chicago. All right. Not saying that it's better or worse. It's just different. Okay. There is this illusion, okay, that there's a little bit more freedom, okay, because there's more space to roam. But that illusion of freedom Oh my goodness. That is what handicapped the situation for Emmett Till back in 1955, traveling to Money, Mississippi. Well, as I mentioned, for those of you that know the story, you know what happened. For those of you that don't know the story, like I mentioned, Google it, search it, and really, really read and take in the devastation, the ugliness, the hatred that was perpetrated on this young man. I want you all to check out Russ and Les. Yes, Russ and Les, they discuss life, relationships, and a multitude of subjects from a man's perspective. These guys are awesome. You can find them where? On the Man Space podcast. Yes, you can find them on all of the podcast platforms, your favorites. If you love Spotify, Apple Podcast, you can find Russ and Les there. All right. They talk about a whole bunch of things. Their podcast started a couple of years ago, but let me tell you, the most recent episodes that are some of the best are Man versus a Thin Line and Man versus the Throwback. You have got to check them out. Hey, go to their website and learn more about them at themanspacepodcast.com. I would not steer you wrong. Go check out Russ and Les. These guys are the best. All right, so we're talking about Mamie Till. We're talking about the mother of Emmett Till, and we're talking about how she handled the death of her son. So Emmett Till, of course, is the 14-year-old boy that was horrendously lynched and murdered in Mississippi in 1955. And while we're not focusing specifically on that, we're really talking about his mother, Mamie Till. And then, of course, she got married after Emmett's death. And so her married name was Mamie Till-Mobley. Emmett Till's father, Louis Till, was executed while he was in the Army for a crime that many people feel as though he was not involved in. But that's another topic. So we're talking about Mamie Till, and I really wanted to talk about the strength of this woman at the handling of the death of her son. All right. So as I've said earlier, if you have not read the story or know the story of Emmett Till, make sure you Google it, read it, find out about it. The Emmett Till story galvanized the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks said that when she was sitting on the front of the bus and was ordered to go to the back, she could not get Emmett Till out of her mind. Remember, this had just happened, months before the Montgomery bus boycott began. And so Rosa Parks has this idea of Emmett Till fresh in her mind. All right. So it's this incident that really, really galvanizes the civil rights movement. But also it's this incident that brings to light, not only in other parts of the United States, but throughout the world, the horrendous, the ugliness of Mississippi racists. All right. So now Mamie Till gets the phone call that her son Emmett is missing. All right. He's been alleged to have whistled at a white woman. And we've come to find that, there have been many differences in how this really happened. All right. The woman that accused him, her name is Carolyn Bryant. She's the wife of Roy Bryant. She accuses to her husband and to her brother-in-law that Emmett put his hand around her waist, or that he touched her hand, that he whistled at her. Okay, all of these different stories, which we come to find later on, him touching her in some inappropriate way or interacting with her in some inappropriate way, was totally false. She made it up. All right. But in any event, now the story is out. Okay, Roy Bryant and his half-brother J.W. Milam are angry and upset. All right, and so they come to Mose Wright's home. Mose Wright, again, is Emmett Till's great uncle. They come to Mose Wright's home gun in hand, and they enter his home, and they're looking for Emmett Till. Okay, so they get Emmett Till, they make him get dressed, they take him out, put him in their truck, and take him off and do the most heinous things you can think they can do to a human being. Now, I want you to remember, this is a 14-year-old, okay, from Chicago, and these are grown, established men, all right? So, they mutilate him, okay? They knock out all of his teeth. He's slashed all over the place, okay? He's beaten mercilessly, all right? They shoot him in the head, okay? They do all types of other mutilational things to him, okay? And on top of all of this, after he's dead, they're still beating and doing nasty and ugly things to his body. Finally, take a cotton gin, tie it around his neck, okay, and throw him in the Mississippi's Tallahatchie River. All right, a 14-year-old, okay? How animalistic can you be? Now, we're talking about white racist in Mississippi, okay? How inhuman can you be? This is just one of the worst crimes committed against children, okay? And again, this is committed by card-carrying, racist, individuals in Mississippi. Mamie Till gets the phone call that Emmett is missing. She tries to hold on to hope, okay, that her son will be found. There's now an investigation because what Mamie Till does is she brings this information to the light of the media, okay? So Mamie Till wasn't shy, all right? She knew that, hey, my son is missing. There has got to be something done. And the first thing that you need to do is you need to let the media know what's happening, okay? So what she does is now she galvanizes. She calls reporters. She calls the NAACP. She calls the mayor's office. She calls her local congressman. She gets in touch with the governor. So now, the search for Emmett Till becomes a major thing. All right. She's got individuals up north demanding that people in the South, authorities in the South, that they do something, okay? And not let this be like it's always been for African Americans and others in Mississippi, that this is some, lynching that's swept under the rug. She was determined to not let that happen. So this is why I'm talking about Mamie Till today. She has this resolve. She has this strength. Deep down inside, she knows that there is something wrong that has happened to her son. Okay? She wants her son back. Okay? In any way. All right? But she's going to let people know. She's not going to let this be swept under the rug. All right? So as now the wait is going on, the Mississippi authorities are questioning people and, trying to get more information. You have sheriffs from 2 different counties now that are, that are investigating this case and trying to find out what happened. All right. Finally, they find the body. They have Mose Wright, Mamie Till's uncle, to identify the body, and what he sees, I'm sure, is something that he's had nightmares about. At the time, Mose Wright was 64 years old. And for those times, that could be seen as a little bit more elderly. He had lived a long life in Mississippi, and of course of having to deal with the ugliness of segregation and separation. To see his nephew's body in that condition changed the man who always had looked down and been respectful it made him see right there, right out in front, the ugliness that could be done to his own relative. He identified the body. Shortly thereafter, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam are arrested. There's this issue, however, with the body. And again, if you have not seen Emmett Till's body, because you can Google it and you'll be able to see it. His head, I mean, it is just a gruesome, gruesome thing that they did to this 14-year-old boy for allegedly whistling at, touching, hugging a white woman. All right. There's a cover-up now. So the Mississippi authorities don't want the body seen. However, in Chicago, the power of government, the power of influence is now being thrust upon Little Mississippi. And so Mississippi authorities seal the casket. They wanted Emmett Till to be put in the ground right away so that nobody could see the gruesome thing that these brothers did. But again, the power of political influence from Chicago and some underhanded things that were done, that were needed to be done, they were able to get the body sealed in a casket, and a agreement was made with Illinois authorities and Mississippi authorities that the body would, that the casket would not be unsealed. However, Mamie Till decided that she was going to defy that. How dare they make decisions about her son, her dead son, without her? And so she decided that once the body arrived in Chicago at the AAA Rayner Funeral Home, she demanded, number one, that the body be seen. She wanted to see it for herself. And then second, she demanded that the body be put on display at his funeral, at his viewing and at his funeral, because she wanted the world to see what Mississippi, what these individuals had done to her son. All right. Now, like I said, she fought very hard to see Emmett's body. All right. He was maimed nearly beyond recognition, folks. As I mentioned, killers had continued to assault him long after his death. But Mamie Till wanted the world to see what had been done. She postponed Emmett's burial for 4 days while thousands, from what I read, 50,000 people came to view his body. All right. Jet magazine, Ebony magazine, newspapers, magazines from around the world captured this. All right. Because they wanted this to be on display. All right. So they put not only these brothers on display, these murderers, they put the local authorities out in front. They put the whole state of Mississippi out in front, but also they put the United States of America out there too, because how can you be American citizens? How can we be so great, but yet allow, this type of incident to occur? You all, again, should know that these brothers, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, they were half brothers, that they were acquitted, by an all-white jury. All right. Even though, they had testimony from a number of individuals. There was more than circumstantial evidence. The sheriff, liked these boys and went out of his way to help them. There was the United States Senator from Mississippi, James Eastland, who was doing underhanded things to undermine, this whole trial, because he was a big time segregationist. All right. So, even though, there was a grand jury of all white men that indicted these boys. The truth be told, that there were a number of individuals that knew that an all male, all white jury was not going to convict these boys, these men. And in fact, this all male, all white jury even said that, it took them an hour to come to a verdict, and it would have been a whole lot shorter, but they decided to have a Coke break. Okay. All right. So look at the mindset, their minds were already made up. They had come up with all kinds of a defense, saying that, well, in actuality, Emmett Till was still alive, that, the NAACP dug up his body from some cemetery and planted, Emmett Till's father's ring on the body, because when Louis Till, Emmett Till's father, was killed in Italy, his belongings were sent back to his mom, and one of those things was a ring. And that ring, Emmett Till's mother, Mamie, gave to Emmett Till to have as a possession of his father's. Well, that ring was found on Emmett Till's body. So they came up with all of these different defenses that were nonsense to really, really protect their clients. Okay. And again, it was just very, very despicable. But the power of Mamie Till, she defied the authorities at all levels. She demanded that A.A. Rayner open the casket so she could inspect the body herself, and she did. She demanded that A.A. Rayner Funeral Home in Chicago, that they put him in a casket and that it be open casket. She demanded all of these things of them. And there was some resistance, but they complied. She would not give in. Now, I want you just to imagine for a moment the strength of this woman. Her son has been killed, okay, horrendously, okay. She gets the phone call, all right. Immediately, she notifies the authorities in the North. She notifies the NAACP. She notifies the reporters. And she galvanizes people to come together, okay? Because there's going to be some level of justice. While it may not be in a court of law, okay, in the court of public opinion, okay, Mamie Till won. Yeah, so in a court of law, and even to this day, Emmett Till has not found justice. Mamie Till has not found justice for the death of her son in a court of law through our judicial system. However, in the court of public opinion, okay, she has won. So Mamie Till went on after his death to be a speaker for the NAACP. She went around the country and talked about the hatred and the separation and the segregation of Mississippi and the South. All right. She spoke on behalf of other individuals, victims of this type of crime, even into the 2000s. All right, she did so. So her son is killed in 1955. During the height of the civil rights movement, she's still out speaking in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s. She still wants the death of her son to be remembered. So we're talking about the power and the strength of Mamie Till after the death of her son. This was not the life she wanted, okay? Mamie Till wanted to be married. Okay, she wanted to have a good relationship. She wanted to raise her son. Okay, she wanted him to be the best that he could be. Okay, she wanted to just live a simple life. All right, not a life of fame and, all of that, being in the public eye. She just wanted to live the life that many women of that age wanted to live. All right, she is now thrust into the public eye, and the way she carried herself, okay, while in Chicago viewing the death, viewing her son's murdered body, demanding that he be seen, then going to Mississippi to his trial, okay, and sitting there and watching how these defendants, were acting as though nothing, this is nothing to us, having to sit in a colored only section, but then under the threat constantly. There's no federal troops. There are no federal law enforcement there, to protect them. Okay. So at any time they are at the whim of local authorities who are suspect, at the least, at the time, but yet she maintains her composure. Okay. She maintains her composure when she testifies in the court. All right. She had this dignity unseen of black women, according to whites at the time. And she exude this confidence and changed how people really thought, of African American women and the power that they had during this time. Mamie Till has always, for me, just served as this powerful speaker, this powerful teacher. After Emmett Till's death, as I mentioned, she went on to speak and to carry on his legacy. All right. In Chicago, there's a street named after Emmett Till. All right. She started what's called Emmett Till players, who would tour the country. These were young people who would tour the country and deliver speeches about hope and unity and determination. She saw how public speaking could teach students history and confidence and discipline. She got a bachelor's degree and she got her master's degree and went on to teach special education in the Chicago public schools. So again, Mamie Till served as this really powerful individual, that decided that after the death of her son, that she was not going to let his life, his death be in vain. So that's my podcast for today. Just wanted to talk to you all about Mamie Till and the power of this strong black woman in light of the slaying of her son, her 14-year-old son. And I put emphasis on child and 14 and son because quite often, the media and other people that have a sordid sense of, thinking when it comes to African American people, want to make it seem as though, he was a 14-year-old man. You're not a man at the age of 14, and especially for that time, the 1950s. They wanted it to be seen as though he was some, sex offender. They wanted to be seen as though, he was some, black kid that didn't know his place, that, he needed to be put in his place. Well, no. Emmett Till was a 14-year-old boy, that was horrendously murdered by two ugly, angry, ignorant white men. And we need to continue to promote the legacy of Emmett Till and to bring forth the racist history of Mississippi, because if we don't remember our history, we are bound to repeat it. All right, this is Jaden Miller. Please, again, like, share, and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Like, share, comment on your favorite podcast platform. I strive to drop new episodes every Wednesday and Sunday. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. But I think about you guys often, and I at least try to get one out every week. All right, pretty busy. Got lots of stuff going on during my day or during my week. So, but again, I appreciate your support. I want you to think about what I talked about today. Think about the racism for that time. And, is that something that could still happen today? Some of you would say yes. Look at the George Floyd situation and Trayvon Martin and others, that we hear about today, And so I think that's why so many people get upset and that they come together and they want to make sure that justice is done. Justice was not done for Emmett Till in a court of law. But today, African Americans and others join together to make sure that justice for victims today is not swept under the rug or buried 6 feet under, but that is brought to light so that we can be the country that we claim to be. All right. Again, think about it with Jaden Miller. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Think About It with Jaden Miller. Don't forget to like and subscribe to his YouTube channel, and like and follow on your favorite podcast platform.